How's it going? I'm Ryan Eakin, and back today for View from the Pits is John Solazzo. John, thanks for coming on today, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Well, let's get going first when it comes to going back to the Oshawa days, right? A lot of these guys are still in the IBL playing for the Maple Leafs. They began with those Oshawa Dodgers teams back in the late, 2009, 2008. So what do you remember about coming to the IBL and playing for Oshawa?
I was 18 years old in high school. I got the opportunity to pitch for Oshawa Dodgers, and I was nervous. Young guy, and my first game I had to play against Brantford Red Sox. The juggernaut of the league. All these guys are ex big leaguers and minor leaguers, right? So for me to be out there and to pitch, it was nerve wracking, but it was also I learned a lot from a lot of guys.
Is that kind of the one thing I guess you'd say to maybe a younger player that might say, hey, I want to play in like the WCBL or play in some league in the States, but then you can say, hey, I mean, I came up here, I'm facing guys that played AAA, I'm facing Lee Delfino and, all these different players. Is that kind of like the selling point that you give to a younger player, if, like you were in the shoes of a Damon Topley or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, the IBL is such a good league. They produce so many good players, and they bring a lot of good players. You know what I mean? Like with Jose, our shortstop, getting that from minor league system, Dustin Richardson, all these guys that played, Major League Baseball. It's an amazing league, amazing talent. And that's why I say to a lot of young guys, like, come back from school and play in the IBL. It's just as good talent than, down there in the States, right?
Right. And after that one season in Oshawa, you went to Mississauga, and that was a different time back then. They were the Thunderbirds. They were not the team that they're on now. So, just what do you remember about playing for Hamilton that 2010 season?
Hamilton, they did an amazing job. They helped supporting me in so many ways and gave me the opportunity to play. We obviously went through a lot of owners and coaches and stuff like that, but when Mike and Matt Fortuna took over, that's when we had a special team. That's when we had some good players and we had a potential. I mean, we did really well. I remember one series we played against Barry, and even Barry said, like, you guys got potential. You know what I mean? You guys got a special team, right? So it was sad that, it had to end, right? The team obviously went their separate ways and, went to Brantford. I went to Toronto and stuff like that. But it was a special time to play in Hamilton. I would never forget those days.
Right. I'm sure some guys across the league thought maybe Hamilton at that time might not be a top contending team, but looking back at it, they had you and Dan Jigdeo, who you mentioned, ended up going to Brantford, and a few other guys. Just what was the confidence level at back in that 2013 range? And that one series, you guys, as you mentioned, had against the Baycats. You guys, it was, I think it was 5 games, but that series could easily have gone 7 games.
Yeah, I mean, we had with the potential, we had the confidence. We came in the locker room saying, like, look, we can beat any team in this league, right? And it was special playing with these guys. And, a lot of these guys now you still have, good friendship with, like Chris Panano. He's the hitting coach right now on Hamilton. You know what I mean? That's how many years ago that we played with Hamilton, right? So, I mean, it's sad that it had to end, but it was a special time, and who knows what could have happened if that team stuck together? It could have been something special, right?
Right, and it didn't stick together. And I was just listening to those podcasts that you did with those guys down the third baseline. And, you mentioned how John Waltenbury, former Maple Leaf, former Baycat, was a guy that kind of made the trade happen, sending you from Hamilton to Toronto. Is he like an agent for you at this point, or how did that trade go down that time?
So Waltenbury reached out, I think probably through Facebook, messaged me and said, hey, look, Solazzo, he's like, what are you doing next year, right? We would love to have you. We'd love to have you as a third base, first base, anywhere you got to, you're good at bat, right? I said, look, I've always been playing for Hamilton. This is like my fifth year going in. Like, I didn't know Toronto even wanted me, right? So Wallenberry basically talked to Tops and Jack at the time, and they worked something out to send me and Brett Van Pelt at the time. And I don't know, they made a trade. Supposedly, they sent a guy over from the Dominican that played for the team and some money on the side. I don't know the whole thing, how it went down, but that's kind of how it happened. And I think this is my 6th year now in the Leafs, and I never look back. I mean, I love to play here. I want to retire in this league, and I want to retire with the Leafs, right?
Right, and going back to you become a Maple Leaf, I'm sure Damon phoned you up and Jack phoned you up. Just what do you remember about those two phone conversations? The first one, Damon, then Jack after that.
Yeah, so when I talked to Tops the first time, he was all on board. We had our own differences, but we, obviously put that aside, and he was excited. I was excited to come play for the team. And, I knew that I could be more relaxed and be able to, show up and not feel the pressure like I did in Hamilton. And when I talked to Jack, I mean, we all know Jack, you know. But talking to Jack, he always said, he's like, you better hit. No hitty, you're city. And he would always say that to me. And no, Jack was he was always on board. He would always talk to me, and you know, it was he was all on board of it. So it was a nice conversation with both of them.
Right. As a left-handed bat at Christie Pitts, it's your first game that I'm sure on a Sunday afternoon, early in May, the first game of the IBL season. So what was your first impressions of, I mean, you played at Christie Pitts and Mississauga, all that kind of stuff, but with the Maple Leaf hat on and that baby blue maple, whatever it was that day, what was it like that first game playing at Christie Pitts?
I mean, it was a surreal moment. I mean, looking down at my chest, seeing that logo, and how much history and the players that came through here, the people that were sitting in the change room and on the bench, it's like, it's an honor to wear it. You know what I mean? It's almost like, the Yankees or the Boston Red Sox. It's so much history on this team. And it was a pretty special moment for me to play my first game. Getting out there on the field, it's a pretty small park. You know what I mean? The hops are pretty bad at the time. And the fans, I think the fans there are amazing. I mean, there's day ones before my time and probably before Tops's time. They show up all the time, and it's amazing. And they know all the players, they know the stats and everything. But it was probably one of my best days in the league is when I started playing for the Leafs.
Right. At the end of the day, like, what led you to becoming in the league? Because as you say, you're in Hamilton for all that time. Yeah, Waltonbury's reaching out to you and all that kind of stuff. But things were going, decent in Hamilton. You guys were making some improvements. What led to you to say, fine, I'll become a Maple Leaf?
I think I didn't want to be part of another rebuild, and I think that's what Hamilton was going through. I think I put my time in as a rebuild, and a veteran in the league. I want to get a ring. That's my number one thing, is to win a championship with the Leafs, of course. And was my number one reason, is I wanted to play with guys that were at the next level, and the team was ready to win now, right?
Right, and then obviously first couple seasons in with Maple Leafs, you made it to the IBL finals against the Bay Cats. But that second round playoff matchup, against London first. What was that whole series like? There was some moments, throughout, and then finally capped off by Tamani hitting that home run in Game 7.
I think that playoff year was just amazing. I mean, you can talk to anybody on that team that year, playing Brantford, going right to Game 7 and then going to London Game 7. That London series was back and forth. It was a grind. I remember, I didn't have Saturday, Sunday off at the time. I would, finish the game off at Wednesday or a Thursday in London. Then drive all the way to Vaughan to work all night, and then the next day go play at the pits. It was tough. It was hard on the body. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff happening in that series. I remember there was a play. A guy came at third base, slid hard, super hard, and at the time, there was a London third base coach there, and he got into my face, and we were jawing back and forth. And the third base guy that slid at me, he were to start jawing at it, and the benches started clearing. And people were saying there was racial slurs, and it was all over the paper. The game stopped. Group took their team off. They waited on the bus for about an hour. It was just so weird. There was no racial slurs. There was nothing. I don't know how it happened, but it just built up even more to Game 7, right? And we won Game 6, and then Game 7 was in London. And of all people, Tamani hits his moonshot off the light pole. Like, he owns London. When you go there, that's his field. That's his light pole. And that was just something else, like the shock in his eyes, the shock in our eyes. It was by far the best playoff series I've ever played in. It was amazing.
What was that night like for you guys? I mean, in the clubhouse afterwards, because I remember I was with the Baycats at the time, and a lot of those Baycat guys wanted Toronto too, because a lot of the guys were from Toronto and all that kind of stuff. So I know there was some rooting interest in the half of the Baycats at the time. Just what was that night like in the clubhouse and celebrating in London that night?
I mean, the beers were flowing. It was just crazy in there. Music was blasting. We were cheering. We were like on, highest as we could feel, right? It was just something that you can't really explain. And we're all reading our phones and the text messages from the Bay Cats, like, "Oh, so glad you guys won. We didn't want to play London." What I mean? It was going to be a good series playing against Barrie, so we were excited about that.
Right, and also that first game was close. I mean, I think it was Costello of all people that hit a go-ahead bomb, I think, in the 8th inning, and then Game 2, game goes to extra innings, and then tops goes to you in the bullpens to in a tie game. I think it was the 11th inning. You come in just, you've pitched in games in the past, some close games, some mop up games, whatever it may be. But 11th inning, game 2, you guys are down 1-0. It's just a huge game, and you're facing the Spatties and Atkinsons, Costellas. What was that moment like for you coming out of the bullpen that night?
That team, it was a special team. They play well together. Obviously it shows with all the rings that they won, right? But yeah, it was tough because we all play together. We all know each other's stuff. We know that I only had a fastball at the time, and they were gearing up on it. So, I mean, Walton Berry hit one off me. A couple other guys hit one off me. Like, it was a special moment to play against these guys, but also, like, you try to be serious too, right? These guys are our friends, but we want to beat them, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously you guys lose that playoff series, but at the end of the day, like just that whole playoff run, because as you mentioned, that Brantford playoff round too. It went Game 7. Justin Morrow hits one of the bigger, Maple Leaf home runs of the last 5-6 seasons.
Yeah.
What was that whole playoff round, or matchup? Just looking back at it, that whole playoff run for you guys, how special was it?
Honestly, for me, I've never made it to the semifinals, right? So that was special. And then, making it to the championship round, that first time for me, so taking it all in, that was special. That was something else. Like, how much work you have to put in. Like, we were exhausted. Our pitchers pitched amazing. And, Cicatello at the time was pitching gems. Deska was pitching good. Like, everyone was doing an amazing job. So, like, once we got to the championship round, we were gassed. You know what I mean? And you guys were all, Barry was rested up. They were all ready to rock and roll. And it was a longer season. I remember there was a lot of rain delays, so we actually played into Labor Day weekend, and it was a long season for us, right? So it was special, right? But obviously we got swept. I wish we made a little bit better series out of it, but it was a good experience moving forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned the drives in London and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to get into some other Maple Leaf stuff, but I just want to stop and ask because you have a job at CNRL. And I remember a couple of weeks back, I was in the Baycat dugout and you were talking to, I can't remember who, but you said, man, after this, I got to go into Vaughan and have a night shift. Just how do you balance a night shift, doing what you do at CNRL, and then playing baseball perhaps the next day?
It's a lot of preparation goes into it. It's not like, you got to wake up early in the morning. You got to pack your lunch the night before, have your shower stuff ready for the game, uniform. You got to have it all packed up in the truck, right? So, you go and work. You work 11 p.m. to 7 in the morning, right? You go to sleep at 8 o'clock in the morning. You got to get up at 2 because you got to make it for batting practice. Driving to Barrie or London, it takes time with the traffic. Then after the game, you got to shower and then race back to work, right? So you're texting the supervisor, hey, look, game's going a little bit late. Can you cut me some slack? So it's a lot of wheeling and dealing, and a lot of sleepless nights. There's some days where, Sunday, I used to work Sunday, right? So I would get off in the morning, go home, have some breakfast, go to the pits, play all day, and then I'm going to sleep at 7 p.m., get up at 10, I'm back to work, right? But I love the sport. I love it. It's a big part of my life, and you'll do what you got to do to make it happen.
Right, so that kind of leads me to last season, right? You guys make it to the finals against London, obviously, once again facing London in a big playoff matchup. And that fourth game, you guys needed to come home with the W to force a Game 5 in London the next night. And that game kept going on and on and on. And eventually Sean Riley hits an absolute bomb to left field to send that game send the playoff matchup to Game 5. Just for you, I mean, that's midnight at that point. I mean, what's happening with you that night?
So at that time, when I know there's going to be a late game, I always grab my phone. I'll give it to our trainer, Pedro. And I say, look, Pedro, I might need it if game gets a little late. I got to text the boss. So at that time, I was like texting him at 10:30. I'm like, I'm going to be late. It's a close game. 11:30, I'm like, well, it's going in the extras now. Like, I don't know what time I'm going to be there. And then in my head, I'm like, you know what? Like, if we win, like, it's going to be surreal in that clubhouse. Like, I really need to go to work, so you're putting all these factors in. And, so anyways, we ended up winning the game. It was something else. It was a blast. And, everyone's just jawing it up, having their beers, but I can't be a part of that because now I got to go work and drive locomotives all night. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it was tough.
I got you. And then obviously to get you to that point, you guys had to face Hamilton the first round. You guys swept them, and then you also swept the Baycats in the second round. And that was the first time the Baycats lost a playoff series since 2013. Just as a team that, had to go through 2015, losing the semis to the Baycats, and, 2016 losing the finals, is what did it mean to you guys, that whole group of guys, like the Justin Mars and Toppleys too, and that dynasty?
I think, for us, it was always a grind every time we played Barrie. And I felt like we never got that lucky bounce, that lucky hit. It was always Barrie. Barrie always got everything. But I mean, they're a great team, right? So for us to win it there and move on and put it on them early with the home runs, it was special. Like, it was well overdue. It was like, when are we going to get our chance to finally beat these guys, right? So even when I was with Hamilton, the same thing. Barrie was always beating us. So, for us to finally get the job done, it was a special moment for, that core group of guys that's been grinding it out for so long, right?
Right. And then also the hashtag this season's unfinished business. I know you guys even have it up in the clubhouse. And just take me through game 5 last year against London. You guys lose that game. Just what was the mood like, driving home and just being in the clubhouse and knowing that you guys came as close as you possibly can, because you guys even had a lead in that game at some point?
Yeah, park was packed. The vibes are, crazy. We had, all the beer and stuff like that. It was game 5. You never know what was going to happen. So it was all in the clubhouse. We all knew what was at stake, right? And, we're up right away. And I'm like, wow, we might get this done. Like, you know what I mean? Your eyes are opening up, and, basically a home run kind of changed the whole momentum of the game, right? And we kept clawing back. We just couldn't get the job done. And to lose to London, you know what I mean? They're a great team as well. And, they've been always there every single year, but same thing with us, just never got to that next level. And, tip the hat to them. It was a good series, but it was tough. It was sour. It was almost like that close, getting my first ring, winning it with the Leafs. A lot of guys that put long hours and a lot of time into it, right? So it was a pretty shitty drive home, driving home. But lucky enough, I didn't have to work that night. But it was tough. But it just made you hungrier for next season. You know what I mean? It's like you said, unfinished business. It's the perfect hashtag for this year, 100%.
Right. And a lot of the guys came back from last season too. Obviously, some of the Guelph guys had to go back because it was a one-off season type of thing of Guelph not having a team. But overall, the team coming back and Topley really adding to the pitching staff. Just where does this team rank in terms of one of the more complete teams? Maybe the lineup isn't Sean Riley and Tack being in Quebec now and stuff. But the pitching staff to me is the best it's been since I covered the team and covered the league. And also the lineup is still elite. So just what do you make of the team's chances this season?
I think for this year, I think we have a really good chance. You know what I mean? I find the regular season is just a regular season. When it comes to the playoffs, it's up for grabs. Anybody can, stun someone. Anybody can come out of nowhere and be the hero, right? But, top to bottom, everyone can hit. Everyone can hit a home runs, as you can see. You know what I mean? Dan Mara, or Damon Topley hitting bombs. Like, it's just like, we got the power. It's there, right? So I'm not, worried about the hitting. I'm not worried about the pitching. We got some big arms. A lot of young guys too. Very surprising. I don't really know much about the younger guys, but they're coming through. They're hitting the ball hard. They're pitching good. I mean, our defense is amazing. I mean, when everything's going at once on all cylinders, we got a really good chance to actually winning at this year. So.
Right. You mentioned how the regular season is what it is in this league. And, I looked at the lineup on Sunday and you were playing second base. When's the last time that you played second base, and what was that experience like for you on Sunday?
Man, I think the last time I played second base, I was 16 with Ontario Blue Jays. I mean, I never played on that side of the field, especially second base. So, to throw the ball, I mean, it was a lot easier on the arm. I'm not going to lie. It was kind of nice, but it was strange. I didn't know where to play up the middle, how to turn the double plays. It's more easier if I was playing shortstop, right? But at the end of the day, you're fielding ground balls, right? So it's the same as third base and anywhere else, but it was totally, a change for me. Hopefully that doesn't have to happen again, but if it does, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and obviously at the end of the day, you guys won that game too. You had a big hit in the 8th inning of that game to lead the comeback. Obviously, that hit was what it was. But in the 9th inning, just being in the dugout, I mean, your point, you were pretty close coming up to bat, but Mara and Castaldo made sure that didn't have to happen. Just how cool was that too? It's a regular season game, it is what it is. But at the same time, how cool was that seeing those guys, complete comeback that, I was texting Tops after the game. And he said, yeah, that's never happened. So this is how cool was that on Sunday?
I mean, I've seen a lot of comebacks in the pits, as we all know. But that one was special. You know what I mean? We basically we were playing behind the whole game, and I've seen Justin Castaldo hit home runs left, right, and center, right? But to see Justin hit that home run, for him to start turning it around now, hitting all those bombs, and the momentum changed, you know what I mean? In that eighth inning, and then the ninth, and then Mara tying it up, and everyone's just getting going. The Bushmen are up yelling, screaming. We were in the driver's seat at that point, and Castaldo hits this one. I'm like, okay, it looks like it's going. And then the wind just takes it, and it was just gone. Everyone's going crazy. I'm at home plate just waiting for Castaldo just to kind of, power up, right? But it was special. It was something that we needed. That just tells you that like anything can happen in the pits and anything can happen in the IBL.
Right, and this start that you guys have had this season too, 9-6 as of time of this podcast and all that kind of stuff. Just how impressive you've been. Especially you mentioned earlier the younger players that Tops has brought in from his program out in Mississauga. Just how helpful can that be to keep you guys afloat throughout the regular season?
Huge. I mean, those guys help out a lot. Like, a lot of us, like we got to go to work, right? Long days and getting up early and grinding it out. And, some days we can't make it, or we got, family things going on, people having kids or this or that, whatever's thrown at us. So for the kids, well, younger guys coming out to help out, I mean, it's amazing. It helps us out a lot, and they're producing. They're actually amazing, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if these guys, are starters in the future, right? So.
No, absolutely. And I'll ask you the last question. I hope you appreciate this question. So we got Dan Mara 2 home runs, Tops 1 home run. Justin was not off to a hot start. He's got 5 now,
Yeah.
But there's still one guy in the Leafs line with a donut. I mean, when can we expect the first bomb this season, John?
You know what? I guess 69 career home runs, is that it? Like I can't get the 70. But you know what? Honestly, right now I'm just thinking base hits. I know I can hit the long ball. I know I can, but I'm not thinking like that right now. I'm just thinking get on base hits, hit the ball hard, and it's a long season. So I wouldn't be surprised if something happens this week or in the future. So, but it's coming. Don't worry, it's coming.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I know for a fact that by the time I do this podcast, you might have a couple bombs under your belt. So I'm not too stressed about it. So I appreciate you coming on today, man, and looking forward to talking to you throughout the season, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. I appreciate you doing this. And, you've changed the whole organization around, doing social media, the articles and the Instagram and everything. We all appreciate it. The league does. And I just want to say thank you for that, and keep doing what you're doing, man. It's amazing work.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.